2 months ago, five-star Elijah Rushing chose Arizona over Oregon, but over the weekend, the number 31 ranked player overall reopened his recruitment. Elijah Rushing decommitted from Arizona, and in this video, we're going to check in with one of the best Oregon recruiting insiders in the market to find out what's been going on behind the scenes of Elijah Rushing's recruitment, because obviously there's been a lot, but that's not all either. Oregon could be adding a second elite defensive lineman as well. Aiden Breland from Mater Dei High School in California is set to announce this Saturday. For months, it's been trending in UGA's direction, but Oregon, did they make a move in these last 2 weeks? We're going to bring on Justin Hopkins of Scoop Duck in a minute, but first, Oregon fans, do me a favor. Subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We got this thing cranked up. We're talking Ducks recruiting. All right, let's get to it. Justin Hopkins from Scoop Duck. Justin, five-star edge, Elijah Rushing. He decommitted from Arizona over the weekend. What's been going on behind the scenes these past few weeks between Rushing and Oregon to get us right to this point?
Well, Josh, you know as well as I do, nothing's ever official until something's signed in recruiting. And, in the case of Elijah Rushing, when he originally committed to Arizona, it was widely viewed as a pretty big shock to everybody. At least within, that last 24 hours, things got weird. But up until then, it seemed like it was heavily in favor of Oregon. So, of course, the Ducks didn't give up and kept recruiting him. Dan Lanning, this is one of the guys that Dan Lanning personally has been recruiting and has been recruiting since he arrived at Oregon. So I think those relationships were big. Of course, in Arizona's favor was his older brother, Cruz, going to play at Arizona. He hasn't really played very much, so you kind of wonder how that factors into these, recent developments as well, which he seemed to indicate in his social media post. But yeah, Oregon just kept the hammer down, and I'm not one of those guys when someone commits somewhere else, you say, hey, don't worry, Duck fans, they'll flip them later on. I rarely do that, but in this case, Elijah Rushing was one where I said, hey, Oregon's not going to give up on this one. Let's see what happens come November and December. Well, he jumped the gun a little early, and here we are in October.
Yeah, I think everybody in the industry, at the time, you got to credit Arizona for locking down an in-state commitment of a five-star D lineman, but at the same regard, I think everybody was kind of side-eyeing that one just to wait until it reopened, and now it has. So what's next for Rushing in terms of visits? Do we expect him in Eugene soon?
Yeah, expect him in Eugene very soon. Obviously the Ducks are away this weekend playing in Seattle against the Huskies, so that won't be the case. But yeah, I would expect that when his schedule, his school schedule, football schedule, and the Ducks being home, you would see the Rushing family in Eugene very soon. You have to wonder because at the time, Tennessee and Notre Dame were a couple others that were, in his recruitment pretty seriously towards the end there. Will he take visits to make sure and kind of go through the process once again? Don't really have the answers on all that yet, but it's pretty clear right now. Myself and most in this industry think that Oregon is the biggest threat to land Rushing, early on with his second commitment. It seemed fairly clear from his post, once again, that Arizona's probably not in the running any longer. So it looks like his next choice will be somebody else.
Wow. So, yeah, you kind of laid out the timetable. It's unknown, but we do not expect a commitment to be imminent at all. At least a couple weeks before anything happens, likely kind of down the road from there. So that being said, who do you think is Oregon's biggest competition now that this recruitment's reopened?
I think originally when he committed to Arizona back in July, I think Tennessee was the biggest threat to Oregon. I know they did a really good job with his visit. It's a tremendous school. There's a tremendous atmosphere there at Tennessee. Of course, that they're pretty well put together from an NIL standpoint. So I think that Tennessee at that point was the biggest threat. It wouldn't surprise me if USC does everything they can to try to get back into this race and really, try to get Rushing on campus. I don't know if they can make up that much ground, but, that's another one that makes sense. But right now, those are probably the throws that I would say, are early contenders for Rushing. I'm sure his phone's blowing up. His dad's phone's blowing up. So we'll see if there's some other schools that decide to get, involved this late in the process.
But your intel, all signs are pointing to the Ducks. Just a couple hours ago, you put in a prediction on Scoop Duck. The article's up there now, Ducks fans, if you want to go check it out. But you put in a prediction for Elijah rushing to Oregon. So tell the folks why you feel confident.
Well, it is Tuesday, so it's only fitting that I do my prediction Tuesday that you love. So yeah, I just feel that, his decommitment and, the subsequent smoke around Oregon is no mistake. I mean, that's by design. I think the Ducks have done a tremendous job really showing what defensive lineman with his skill set can do in this defense. As we know, Oregon's defense is a much different looking unit than it was last year. Mm-hmm. This year, they're pressuring the quarterback, doing some things there. Tosh Lupoy was there last week, actually before he publicly decommitted, visited Elijah Rushing. So, the Ducks feel really good about, where they stand with him and the chances that they have there. Again, I don't feel a commitment is imminent this week or maybe even next week, but it certainly looks like the Ducks are in the driver's seat right now until I can see another school pose a bigger threat. I think he ends up signing with the Ducks.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible news. I know since he decommitted over the weekend, there's been a lot of buzz around Oregon, but prior to this, I mean, Oregon fans, this one just kind of fell in your lap. You got to be fired up about it. All right. Speaking of being fired up over a recruit, Aiden Breland, he's going to commit. We talked about this at the top of the hour, or at the top of the show, I should say. He's committing on Saturday. And heading into the week, UGA was trending at 73% on the recruiting prediction machine. But Justin, you got something to say about that. Today is Tuesday. Speaking of predictions, where do you think Aiden Breland's going to land on Saturday?
Well, as you alluded to, I logged a prediction for Oregon, the first Oregon prediction for Breland. There's a couple Georgia ones hanging out there. Fairly low confidence, and I get it. He's done a really good job. Their camp has done a tremendous job, keeping this recruitment pretty tight-lipped. So I got to give the Breland family a really, kind of a tip of the cap because, as well as I do in this day and age, most of these things tend to leak out pretty good, but the Brelands have done a good job. Now, that said, I think Oregon has the best relationship with Breland, the longest standing relationship with Breeden. I never discount Kirby Smart in Georgia. They're obviously a massive threat for any recruit that they really target. A couple things, though, and maybe the biggest one to me, I've done this for a long time, and I've covered Oregon for a long time. And one of the things the Ducks do really well is recruit nationally, recruit all corners of the U.S. And I've seen distance work for and against Oregon in a lot of cases. And this is one where I think as we're kind of leading up to his recruitment, as we're getting close to his commitment here, that reality of playing 3,000 miles away from home starts to hit home, about now. So from now to Saturday when he makes his commitment, that really becomes a thing. So I think that swings in Oregon's favor. I think the fact that they've had the best relationship with him, and I do think Georgia made a really big push with that recent visit, but I think it's always kind of been the Ducks slightly ahead, although I know Georgia really, really put it on them, and I know that they were absolutely 100% in this. I do think he'll end up committing to Oregon on Saturday.
Wow. And just talking to you throughout the cycle, it's been a roller coaster ride for Oregon fans following Aiden Breland's recruitment because I feel like early on there was a battle, but by the end of spring, I think the consensus was that he was trending towards Oregon. Then Georgia gets him on campus in the summer. Things start trending heavily toward UGA. It really felt like this one just slipped out of Oregon's fingertips. And now we're less than a week away from his decision. It's swinging back in Oregon's direction. And I think you're right. I think it comes down to when push comes to shove. Are you really going to move 2,500 miles, 3,000 miles away to play football? Or are you going to just go up the coast a little bit? And in this case, I think you're right. Location plays in Oregon's favor, and it could be in an insane defensive line class if these pieces fall the Ducks' way. Justin Hopkins of Scoop Duck, you guys got it all covered. Thank you for stopping by the Inside Scoop.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, be sure to subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We have a new page dedicated only to recruiting. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now.